Hey guys, welcome to Whisktakers. My name is Lubin, and today we'll be continuing on our Eclair Cookie Guild Battle Guide with the new solo strat. With this new update, the solo range has greatly increased too, which means the dragon levels ranging from level 1 upwards of level 32 are now considered solo range. These are dragons that can be killed with just one person, essentially boosting effectiveness of your hits. In this video, we'll be covering two different Vamp solo strat builds with Eclair and Cotton. There are lots of other solo strats out there, including one that uses Almond. However, we've decided that the difficulty for those strats are a bit too high, and the return of investment on these teams are just simply not worth it. If you're interested in the other strats, we have linked some other videos in the card on the upper right corner, as well as in the description box down below. Alternatively, members in our Discord are also available to give advice on how to go about them. Without further ado, let's get straight into building our team for solos. For solo builds, it's important to have a good amount of damage resist on your cookies no matter what. Say the dragon has 10 million HP, but you usually only do around 5 or 6 million damage. You want enough damage resist or HP stats to be able to confidently take down one dragon all on your own. You'll mostly want to work on your lab techs and toppings, then getting as much as you can from your own guild's relic buffs. However, it's really not that hard to be soloing a lower level dragon now with Cotton Cookie, so you do not need to be extremely stacked to try and solo yourself. It's very hard to say what's needed for a certain level of solo, so it's still ultimately up to every player to test things out in practice mode and determine their own safe and confident level of solo. Duos also can be achieved where two people utilize the same strat to take down as much damage as possible and clean up the dragon with only 2 hits. For the most part, we'll be having the same team comp as a regular Vamp team. The only thing you really need to look out for is to have a slightly different topping setup for the cookies. For DC, you can continue using attack toppings, but if you do find yourself having a hard time keeping him alive, which shouldn't be much of an issue, you may switch to damage resist toppings, or give him some extra damage resist subs. Having a good amount of cooldown and attack speed substats on him will also help a lot, a minimum of around 5% for each, but not really necessarily needed. For Eclair, you will have to switch to a full damage resist build. This is to help him sustain for at least 3 cycles or more to stack his debuff, and to deal more damage on the side. Ideally, you want at least 40%, but you can go higher and pack in some attack subs on the side. Packing in some extra cooldown is good too, something around 5% or more should be enough. For everyone else, you just need to pack in as much damage resist stats as you can, but in Cotton's case, do not sacrifice a cooldown for damage resist since you will be losing out much more utility. However, her survival is still crucial as well, so try to compensate with what you lack on toppings with lab research instead. Labs and other bond buffs are also very important to getting a successful high level solo. For most people, soloing up to level 15 should not be a problem at all, but to get to the higher levels, we recommend having relevant cookie techs to be at least level 5, just to get the most out of what you put in. Even if you don't have the resources, getting them to at least level 1 is also a good bit of boost to help get just even one higher level of solo. With all your toppings set up, let's observe how to achieve a successful run. Special thanks to Gosu for providing the video. Let's break down the steps to this strat. For the first rotation, you'll basically be replicating the same steps as a regular run. Let's just do a quick run through of that. Has Cotton when the timer on Sharky is just past the shine on his head. Start mashing Eclair to cast immediately after boss text. DC when Cotton is at the pillar. Vamp at 6 o'clock, Shark at 9 o'clock, and don't forget Slingshot and Cotton. DC when circles start to blink a second time, Eclair whenever he's off cooldown, then Slingshot, Vamp, Shark, and Cotton. The one thing to note here is that if your Eclair is dying at this point, that means your team isn't strong enough to kill off at least one minion for Eclair's skill shield to pop off yet. Usually on lower levels, this isn't a problem, but on higher levels, it can become one. If you find that you're not doing as much damage as you like on solo, this is likely going to be the main reason. After the Fire Breath, cast Cotton the second your team is out of stun. After the Dragon Bite, cast DC and Slingshot. Then cast Vamp and Eclair at the same time. Sharky also whenever he's off cooldown. As usual, Cotton whenever she's off cooldown. Whenever DC is off cooldown, cast him again. Then start mashing Vamp and Slingshot as well. All you're doing now is to make sure the attacks are lined up with DC and Slingshot debuffs. Cast Cotton immediately as well, and hopefully you'll be able to get the heal out if you have a higher cooldown or attack speed stats. This should now be your final rotation after the breath. Cast Cotton immediately post-stun. Anticipate DC getting stunned from the bite, then immediately cast DC, Slingshot, Sharky, and Vamp to finish it all off. Let's walk through it quickly one more time. Cotton when Sharky's timer is past the Shaman's head. Eclair right after boss text. DC when Cotton's at the pillar. Vamp at 6 o'clock, Shark at 9 o'clock. And don't forget Slingshot and Cotton. DC when circles blink the second time. Eclair when cooldown is up, Slingshot, Vamp, Shark, and Cotton. Cotton again after the sun, DC and Slingshot after the bite, Vamp and Eclair together, then Sharky upon cooldown, Cotton upon cooldown as well. Cast DC, then Vamp, Slingshot, Eclair, and Cotton. Right after stun, cast Cotton. After DC recovers from stun, cast him, Slingshot, Sharky, and Vamp to finish it all off. This strat is quite simple for anyone who's used to soloing with our older strats, and it's enough to kill a level 29 dragon if you have the right stats for it. But what if you want to punch way above your pay grade? Well, we have a slightly different version of the strat. This entire strat is specifically focused on getting that 3 times defense reduction from DC, as well as sacrificing some cooldown on Cotton to achieve a higher damage resist. Let's look at the build. For DC, you want to have a bit of extra damage resist to make sure he can sustain a few hits on higher levels. You can get a mix of attack and damage resist toppings, and have around 5% cooldown to help with timings. Getting 30 to 35% damage resist is going to be your main goal if your DC can't sustain for a full rotation, so make sure it's up there. For Eclair, you also want to pack in the most damage resist possible, just so he can sustain for at least 3 or 4 casts. Eclair will be the hardest part of this build, so it's completely okay to take your time and use whatever you have on lower dragons first before you are able to fully sustain for a kill on a much higher level. For Shark, you want to get at least 11% cooldown on him. This is to ensure that every time he casts, it's directly attacking the dragon and not the minions. 12% or more is the best, and you may mix in 1 or 2 cooldown toppings, but it's still important to stack attack and damage resist subs to make sure he can also survive. On Cotton, you want to prioritize damage resist and cooldown both. This is where a bit of personal intuition will have to come in. You want to balance out how much cooldown you can get away with losing just to get more damage resist subs in, but also still manage to have Cotton keep the rest of your team alive. It's important that she lives, otherwise your team is losing out the sheep summons and the heals needed to sustain. Right here we have around 19% cooldown and 27% damage resist. This is, once again, going to rely on your own testing and getting comfortable with your own timings to get it right. For the sake of following this guide, we'll stick with what we have here and also show the timings accordingly. Timings will be different based on what you have set up on your own. Lastly, Vamp just needs a bunch of attack and damage resist stats. Though he doesn't necessarily need heavy damage resist, it's still best to give him some to survive the meteors and fire breath attacks. I will say that this team is best for duo attack teams on higher level dragons. Having someone with the same setup can deal a significant amount of damage and help further achieve maximum efficiency with minimal hits used on one dragon level. This comp only will work to a certain extent. Once you can get more damage than your regular comp, or it seems like your team will never survive no matter how much buffs you stack, then it's time to switch back to a regular team. Feel free to keep testing in practice mode to see where your limits exactly are. Now that your team is fully built, we'll now see how a run is fully achieved. Special thanks to Dopa for providing the video. Let's break down the steps for this run. First cast rotation will be a bit different. First off, make sure you're starting this fully manual by turning auto off. Right after boss text, cast Eclair and Cotton both at the same time. Then when Vamp is at the pillar, cast DC. Cast Vamp and Shark at the same time at 9 o'clock slingshot, but you can always cast Vamp a tad earlier. After that, you can turn on auto to queue up Cotton. Once she's casted, turn it back off immediately. Then prepare to cast DC, Eclair, Vamp, Shark, and Slingshot all in that same order, right as their cooldowns are up. When the team is stunned by meteors, you can turn on auto once again to cast Cotton. This is where it's important. You want to make sure you either kill off the minions or DC is close enough to the dragon to achieve that perfect 3 stacks of defense reduction. Otherwise, you'll be losing out on a lot of damage. Cotton's Sheep can help with knocking back the minion just far enough so DC can achieve the perfect stack. As your team still has a shield from killing off the minions, you want to cast Eclair. This will ensure that the damage reflected back to Eclair can be absorbed by the shields. Next, cast Vamp, Slingshot, and Shark right as their cooldown is up. The main point to look out for here is that Shark must cast before the next wave of minions are summoned. This will ensure that his attacks aren't blocked off by the minions. Cast Cotton as well whenever her cooldown is up. Cast DC as soon as cooldown is up. Then prepare to spam cast Eclair, Slingshot, Cotton, Vamp, and Shark all at the same time. As soon as stun is over and Cotton's cooldown is up, cast her to eliminate what's left of the minions. For your last rotation, just line everything up with DC and Slingshot, and time should be up, or you'd have killed the dragon already. For the most part of this strat, you only really need to make sure you're getting that full defense reduction stack with DC every time, so you can minimize the potential damage lost. Let's put all the pieces back together for a brief summary of the run. Cast Cotton and Eclair right after boss text. DC when Vamp is at the pillar, then Vamp and Sharky at 9 o'clock. Cotton once CD is up. DC, Eclair, Vamp, Shark, and Slingshot as soon as they're up. After stun, cast Cotton. Make sure your DC is close enough, then cast him. Cast Eclair, then Vamp, Shark, and Slingshot as soon as cooldown is up. Cotton right after. Cast DC. Then spam cast Eclair, Slingshot, Cotton, Vamp, and Shark all together. After stun, Cotton as soon as cooldown is up. DC, Slingshot, Vamp, and Shark all for the final blow. Ultimately, this strat is very straightforward. but to build a team and meet the stat requirements is a long way up. It will still help with duo tag team kills and overall achieving a high damage number for you. So, that is all we have for Eclair solo in Guild Battle. We hope that this has helped you in any way possible. If you need more help, feel free to join our Discord server, where our community members are willing to help out when needed. We understand that due to the complexity of strats like these, some mistakes just aren't easily identifiable, so it's much easier to ask for help in our server instead. If you are a leader of a guild, Whisktakers has also recently launched a new community program, where we're offering a special guild leader role for the leaders within our community. We hope to be connected to other guilds this way, and be able to communicate more efficiently, whether it's leader advice, sharing information, advertising, and more. Simply head on to the Guild News channel to read on the info, and I'll be guiding you through it. As always, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys around.